Well, today we're going to be doing a Mad Max themed live stream. I thought that would be kind of fun to do, especially since Furiosa is coming out, and I figured it would be fun to do some kind of cool shot in regards to that film. And let's go ahead and set some stuff up. First of all, I like to set the camera up on the viewport display to have the no pass through. That way we can really see what we're doing over here rather than seeing all the extra material on the side. And then other than that, let's go ahead and add in a background image. So I already downloaded the background image and we can just drop that guy in. Okay, so I just set up a plane right now, and realistically here we're just gonna try to find the optimal amount of area which we're going to see, because if we do any simulation work, I don't want to do it on areas in which we're not going to see. So obviously we only go really to the camera. I'm going to go past the camera here, and the further away it is, the larger the scale has to be as well. And then let's go ahead and add in our mesh landscape. Go and scale that guy up, and we won't even need our pizza shape to be that big for how far away the landscapes need to be. But I'm going to take this and we'll just scale this outwards. Rotate that around also. Then we're going to use the sculpt tool here in a moment to really get this to be the shape we want it. I'm going to move that below the ground level here. I'm going to change the object mode here, and we'll just hide this so I can see the outline of what we're doing here a little bit better. And then go back over here into sculpt mode. Oops, yeah, sculpt mode. I'm just trying to line this up a little bit better with our reference image. Okay, what kind of hair does she got on this? It's going to be short hair. Like, I like this hair. I think, Deborah, you're pretty close to Charlize Theron, right? Generate you as a human. Okay, the hair is completely wrong on this, but at least we're in the right direction with everything else. Use some new different hair preset here. She's gonna have a screaming face, so we gotta add in a face rig here. Add a face rig. Okay, so she's wearing pants. I'm gonna recolor grade or reshade all the materials. I just need to roughly be the right fit. We gotta make the sleeve shorter too. So she's got like a floating arm. Now we're going full Furiosa right now because she's got no arm here. Probably because of the mask, right? I gotta fix that. But yeah, I got it for a freelance job where we had to animate like 40 or 50 different characters. It was for a documentary about Malcolm X and the assassination. And so what I did was I planned out all the different characters that were in the scene, and then we did the motion capture for each individual character throughout that sequence. And then we pieced it all together inside of Blender, and then I rendered it for 3 months straight, basically. Okay, we're going to turn off the arms mask here. Since we're turning that off, we're going to actually have to fix this so that there's not any clipping here. So I'm going to select the arms, and let's go back into sculpt mode here. Just bring that on the inside. All right, we're going to position her correctly here on the ground. Where's our... Okay, I'm going to open up the reference photo just to have over here. Yeah, because I want to be able to see this. I think it's important to be able to see what I'm doing here. I still have my Rococo suit. I just don't use it all that often. It just is a bit to set up and get working. I do kind of want to mess around with it a little bit more. Once I'm done with this movie, I'm planning on trying to make a animated film that I've been writing. So I might try to use some of it for that. I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll see, guys. Let's just have this rotate outwards here. One of the things I don't like about Blender is that it's not procedural whatsoever. They have procedural elements to it that they try to get to work. It's like Photoshop. I really hate Photoshop for the sense of that there's no procedural nature to like any kind of node graphs. It's just what you do, you have to bake in order for you to apply like noise, for instance. You can't apply noise down chain. You have to have the noise at the end of everything. So you have to rasterize your image in order to be able to do that. Let's see. We're gonna have to change a lot of this anyways here because I have to set the positioning of her torso here backwards. I'm gonna just line that up a little bit better like that, and I feel like that looks a lot better, guys. Let's go to sculpt mode here. Just smooth this out a little bit. She's not supposed to be so busty. And then we'll have to add in some veins and stuff on her since she's screaming. Go back over here into object mode real quick and open up her mouth. Pretty typical of me is like I make the facial expressions. Do you guys, when you're looking for emojis on like your phone, do you guys like make the facial expression of the emoji you're looking for? I find that's like me all the time. I'll be like, you know, I'm trying to find the stupid emoji that I'm looking for. I'll go back over here into sculpt mode, and is it a layer that we really want, or are we going to want to pinch? I feel like pinching is probably just the better bet. And we can always bulge it or something a little bit later. But yeah, I think adding in like some of these pinched lines of like where her veins would be all the way up there. Paint in some of the layers here. So change the strength here to much less. Reason why it's like weirdly sharp is because that's where our crease was. Okay, I think those veins look pretty cool. We're not going to see it on her arms, so I'm not going to worry about sculpting anything on her arms. Overall, just make her a little angrier. I think I've got a limitation of the rig that I have, that it doesn't let me go as far as I'd like. With our human gen selected, I want to make sure our hair is visible as we're working on some of this stuff. So let's just do that. For this, let's use the elastic deform here, and I can just fix a lot of this by just stretching that downwards, I think. And then maybe smoothing out. Try that smooth corrective modifier. Okay, that helps with weird deformations. Smooth corrective. Not actually messed around with that. Smooth by angle? Oh, smooth corrective. I think it has to be before you add the subdivision. Okay. We'll make it before the subdivision. Ooh! Alrighty then. We kind of figured it out. Let's change the factor here, scale here to be way higher. I don't know, that smoothed it out a bit much. So you said factor 0.5 and then a scale of 1. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't dislike that. Then we change the amount of this. Add repeat to 5. Oh, I could set the repeat to like a 5. I guess that's the closest you got to it looking the best there. Then I could just go back to sculpt mode and then fix some things. She is like super freaking skinny here, and that is not realistic whatsoever. So we're just going to thicken up her arms a little bit here. Rotate that down, I guess. I just want it to feel like it's not just like floating above, because that doesn't make any sense. Looks pretty good. Her wrists are like really jacked up though. Why? Just rotate it normally, right? Let's clean that up a little bit inside of our sculpt mode. We'll say these mountains are so close to her though. Let's grab these guys and... or don't scale them on the 3D cursor there. I want to take... so set the 3D cursor to where the camera is located. And then now if we scale them, they'll look like they're the same size, but they are getting further and further away from the camera. So let's do something like this, where they are pretty far away. And then now let's go ahead and fix some of this. Go into sculpt mode here. I'm going to subdivide this guy back here a bunch of times. Save that. And now we got to sculpt in some dunes. So I'll use our sculpt tool here, and then probably a layer paint. Just paint up the area in which I want to have like a dune right here. And let's go ahead into our modifier stack here and add in a multi-resolution. So we could subdivide this a few times. And this will give us the ability to sculpt a little bit in higher detail these different dune areas on the background. And then now using the subtraction tool, we can actually have this go down. So maybe we have more of a valley in certain aspects of the landscape. She is now floating off the ground, which is no bueno for us. She either needs to go down or the ground needs to go up, which I'm probably going to have the ground go up. So let's change the sculpt mode here now to the elastic deform. And then we're just going to grab everything and then just kind of have it come up to meet the area in which she is. We're going to just paint ourselves some footsteps in the sand. That's cool, dude. I think I'm happy with that. That's pretty nice. Those extra little footsteps, I think, will add like a little extra touchy detail to our whole shot. And we didn't kill our computer on the way there. I'm going to keep the local viewport as set to 4, so that way we're not freaking everything out. I'm going to remove the t-shirt shader that we have and the pants shader that we have. For our character, though, we could just go to human gen here. One thing we can do for the skin is we can actually make sure that subsurface is turned on. So that way that has like subsurface scattering. Let's go to Polyhaven and find ourselves some nice HDRI. I think that's going to do us better than trying to mess around with this right now. Let's download this one, not 16K. Okay. And then now all I have to do is orient this correct, because this is definitely not oriented correctly. Delete our sum that we had before, and then go into shader editor and change this to world options. And now if I just add in the appropriate coordinates, I can rotate on the z-axis the correct orientation that I need this to be. I think that's good for the lighting now of just like the general lighting, and then I can always make more adjustments beyond that. But that gets our HDRI placed in there with all of that goodness on the lighting, and now I can add in my own lights to light her specifically how I would like that. Yeah, I remember when I was in college, I used to think like, oh, I need to buy all of my own equipment, everything like that. It's not worth it to buy your own equipment. You can rent. Like, even if you don't hire a director of photography, right? A DP. Even if you don't hire someone like that owns that equipment, you can go get that equipment yourself. You can rent it for a weekend, go film your movie, then return the equipment. I think smoothing out that background there is pretty nice, especially since these are supposed to be like sand dunes, not like hard rocks. So let's go ahead and add in the sand material, and then I think her hair color also might want to be adjusted. Let's go ahead and add in the shader for our ground now. So let's hit new, and then we'll call this sand. And I'm going to find ourselves a Polyhaven shader for sand. Did I previs? No, but I really knew what I wanted going into it. Previs works when you're working with multiple departments of creative teams. I, however, being the person who was kind of like overseeing it and doing all the visual effects, I didn't have the problem of going, oh, well, I don't know what it's going to look like. I think previs works really well when you're working with a director and a VFX artist or supervisor that is a separate kind of like team. But since I'm the one that was handling it, I wasn't too concerned about that aspect of it. I'm going to use this mapping on all of these vectors here. This is a lot of like the same material over and over again. Now, if we change the scale here to a higher number, that'd probably be more accurate. Musgrave is still there. It's now part of the normal noise texture, and you can select it under noise types. What? Oh, 2D terrain. What's an AD? Assistant director. So you have your first AD, which is your first assistant director, and then your second AD, which is your second assistant director. And what they are primarily responsible for is making sure that you make your day. So you film. They're the ones that kind of like create the schedule. That's the first AD. They create the schedule, and then they kind of like are in charge of making sure that it happens. Let's use a math node here, and then I'm going to multiply this like a 0.01 to make the overall kind of like landscaping less. Let's use like a hue and saturation now. We go just view this directly. We'll see what we're doing here. Just change our saturation to be pretty high. Okay. For the base of the sand here, I think that works pretty good. I think we could probably fit in some like kind of atmospherics almost. I think that would be a smart idea for us. So let's go ahead and find some kind of like sand atmospherics to place in kind of like the foreground to create a bit of this fuzziness on the ground. And let's see, we're going to go over to Action VFX's website. Go ahead and save that. And then now if we import an image as a plane, just going to grab our smoke that we got. And yeah, we got all these frames. I'll just change the start frame to be further back. I'll change the base color to be nothing, but the color here is going to plug into our alpha instead of the alpha into that. What that gets us, though, is that I can change this color to like the color of sand. And then now if I change using a color ramp, we can change the amount of our alpha by just looking at this. We can make this more thick. So now if we go view that, we've got like this kind of like thick sand in front of everything. Just scale that guy up, be quite a bit larger. And yeah, I like to just layer these things because it's good to have throughout your entire scene. For this though, what I like to do though is select these guys, and if we go to viewport visibility, I can change this to wired. And then this one also, select that and change it to wired. So that way, when we're looking at this inside the viewport, we don't have like these huge planes just in the middle of our shot. It makes it a lot easier to like navigate with everything around. But yeah, overall, just adding some atmosphere into the background is not necessarily a bad idea either. So let's go ahead and find some more fog that's maybe a little bit more distant. Scale him up to something pretty large, and then just overall have our atmosphere kind of lined up in here. And this is just going to be a background layer. So again, just using a color ramp out of the color value here. The alpha is not going to go anywhere, but we can make this as visible as we would like it to be. So I'll probably do something like that. And then we just plug that directly into the alpha. We can still have that be visible, but then just a little bit grayer. And then that way it's not too visible. It's just kind of like a background, kind of like smoky haze that the whole scene has. I think I'm going to want some more lighting on the front here. I'm pretty happy with the overall lighting of the entire environment, but I do kind of want to have just a little bit on her that we can just give a little bit more color to, some saturation. Light linking, and then we'll hit new. And then I'm going to find our human gen. We'll just drag that in. So that way we're not affecting the ground. We're only going to affect the human here. We're probably going to go to Polyhaven textures, and we'll find some cloth material that we can use. Problem is they don't have a lot of great clothing options. They've got this denim fabric. I think we'll use denim overall on this. Do we need 8K? No. Am I going to download 8K? Yeah. Change the scale here to like a 3, I suppose. Maybe even larger, honestly. Yeah, looks pretty good. So we'll plug these vectors into all of this. I do wish, I don't know if this is a thing or not. Maybe someone could tell me. In Nuke, if I'm selected on an object and then I add in another object, it just automatically goes and views that object. So like, let's say I was viewed on this object here, and then I want it, let's say I clicked on this. I search for color ramp. Instead of it putting it in my mouse, it would have auto tagged it. And then I can also then go and view this thing easier. Add in a noise texture here, go to 2D, I think you said it was. And then I'm going to try to find, let's add in a color ramp after this. And take the vector mapping from that. Yeah, that's a lot better. And then make a pretty contrasty scale option of that. Plug that in through a mapping node, and we could just change the location of this. So the idea behind this map would be to take this, and then before our principled BSDF up here, we can take a mix node, maybe like a mix color, and then that can get plugged in that guy. And then if we have this plugged into like a dark brown, let's remove the saturation a bit. Plug this into the factor. So now we're going to have like kind of like this dirty texture that's going to be multiplied over our other part of our shirt through this matte option. So now we can control how much dirt is being kind of multiplied onto this denim material that we have. So then this gets plugged into our roughness here. And then I want to take this value here, which is our black and white value. And then let's take a mix node, a mix color value. And using the factor here for this guy, let's see. We want that to be pure white. And then on the A input, we're going to take out the fabric roughness that we currently have. So that way it's like has the overall roughness of everything. Oh, wait, not screen. We want this to be a mix. And so we'll take this and then we'll plug that directly into our roughness value. So now this part here is going to be pretty, kind of like have more of like a wet feeling to it. The only other thing is for our original denim that we have here, let's add in a saturation node, take the saturation down to like a 0.2 maybe. I don't know. We're gonna have to find a value that's where it's not so freaking blue. We don't have any displacement here, but what we could do is we could add in a new texture here. We'll use clouds probably, and then add in a displace option, select our texture that we created already, change that to like a 0.01 or something like that. And then now in our clouds option, if we change the scaling here to be something super small, we're going to kind of create like all of these like wrinkles inside of the t-shirt. And then I'll add in a subdivide surface after everything just to smooth it out. I'm going to select the pants here. So let's do shirt. Add that onto the ground there. Yeah, so for this, I'm going to duplicate it and then we'll call these pants. Now we're going to go back over into our noise texture here. And we're going to find a different scale that works better for these guys. So we'll probably do something like that. That works pretty good. And then let's multiply that over top of everything. Probably going to change the scale to be about half the size. I like that right there. Yeah, I think that's great. And then we'll change the position now. I think that's pretty good because this side is all that really matters because it's the most visible to the camera. And then now we're going to have to create the line in which the clothing from that point on downwards is going to have the different material because she's wearing black from here on down, which I think is pretty cool. And I like that style for the clothing. So let's do that. There's a couple ways we could probably approach this. I think it might be smart. Can we use a separate object? I've not done this before. Let's add in an empty, I don't know, a plane axis. It's totally fine. Something like that's right here. I need to use coordinate, texture coordinate. Use the empty, take this object, plug that into the vector, and that should work. Let's use a color ramp. Just make this super contrasty so that way we get the value that we need. And then maybe this is the wrong type of empty, so let's just use a different empty. I'll use the single arrow that goes upwards. Will that work? Separate XYZ, plug the object into that. And so then you take the Z and you plug that into the FAC. And then we go view that. There we go. And then the smaller that is, the sharper the line is. I want to take a mix node, so we'll do a mix color. And then we'll plug that into the B section of it. And then the A section here, we'll just make it black for right now. And then now if we take our overall output of this color ramp into the factor, we should get blue at the top here and then black down there. And technically speaking, I might be able to take a color ramp and then plug this directly into our denim color. Let's go view that real quick. And that'll create the black and white version of the denim. That way it's not just a complete black texture. And then we'll plug that into the A input. So that way we have our black and white version and then our blue version. And then if we take this guy here, let's scale that down so that's why it's a sharper line. This then instead gets plugged directly into the A input. And then the principled BSDF is the one with the overall kind of like blood patterns throughout on top of it. And then overall our pants now, we're probably going to want, if we copy this, let's say that, and then we go to our pants down here and just paste this, we can delete that value, plug that into the factor there, and then plug this into the top there. And now that's going to be black all the way down and then light at the top. Let's see. Let's take a mix color node here and we'll take the value of this and then a little bit of a red value here. Now, the trick we can do here is we can mix this red value onto our sandy color just by doing something like that. So instead of it looking like this, to have just a little bit more of a reddish kind of like sunsetty feel, and then plug this mix node into the base color. And then that'll give it a little bit more of a sunsetty feel just by mixing a little bit of red in without us having to screw with the hue saturation node all that much. I think honestly that'll probably make that a little bit easier to deal with. I'm just adding some more light directly behind her to create a little bit more of some rim light. Also catches these veins a little bit better. Now this light that we're adding in right here, I want to suck out the light that exists in it. So if we do like a -2 or a -1, it'll count as like an absorption inside of Blender. And I'm going to try to create a little bit of shape on the back side of her, just so that way it feels a little bit more one directional with the lighting. For the sand on the ground here, I might even just duplicate that and just adding in a little bit of sand on the ground here that is being kicked up. So for our color management, I'm going to set our sequencer here to ACES CG. And then if we go to our render options here, I'm going to set this to Open EXR multi-layer. And then for our color management on that, we'll override it to ACES CG. So we'll just make sure that everything is rendering out as ACES CG here. So the couple of things, I am going to actually have to change some of the lighting settings here just to get exactly what I wanted. But probably going to add in a little bit of contrast as well. And then let's see, let's go in and add in some glow as well. And change the tolerance here to be a lot less. And then I'm going to change the brightness and the saturation to be about half or so. And then the scaling here overall of this can be quite a bit smaller. I like to add in a little bit of a hue tint to it as well, because that'll give it like the chromatic aberration that we really want. And then let's see, let's change our size for all of this to be a little bit smaller. And then overall, I want the sky to be changed as well. Because this sky, compared to our reference, which I want to have more of that kind of like purplish sunset in there. Let's see. Let's do that. And I'm going to add in some shapes here to get this to be exactly what I want it to be. So overall, we're going to want this whole section up here. And I'm just going to blur feather that, pre-multiply it. And our blur can be a lot larger. And then I don't want her skin to be as bright as it is, so we'll just add in another merge node here. So we'll set that up and then just say RGBA, and then we will invert our selection here. So now the grade will be adjusting the whole background, but not our person. Some stuff to watch out for is this. I'm just going to feather out the bottom here. Past that, let's go ahead and add in a lens distortion here, and just gonna re-distort everything here a little bit more, so that way it makes our environment a little more 3D. I'm gonna take the grain and put that all the way down there, because the grain's got to be like the last thing that we do, as well as the lens distortion. I want everything to happen before the lens distortion happens. And then I also like the idea of after the grain, we'll add in a little bit of a vignette, just a bit. It's got to feel natural. So I try to follow, like the sky is obviously not going to have a vignette in it. So if I blur that now to like a 300 or something, and that's already pre-multiplied, and if I invert our mask selection here, I should be able to darken the edges there a little bit more. And again, we probably could have this happen after the grain, but it's definitely going to happen after our lens distortion. Just change this to like 0.1 or something like that, and paint fix our issues here. I'm going to say I want the bottom of our horizon to be a little bit brighter than the top of our horizon. So what we might want to do is also add in another gray node up here. Let's see. Create another bit of a shape going on. Something like that. Pre-multiply that as well. And then we'll add in another blur node that's like a 400. And take that gray node here. And then if we just darken that top, we'll have more of a horizon. Maybe not blur because that looks stupid. We could go in and paint, you know, like this area right here. Remove some of these like dark shadowed sections of the sand. I do think adding some kind of Z defocus would be nice, but not too much. So I want to change the size of this to be quite a bit smaller. You're right. Overall, some heat distortion would be nice. Let's see what we can do with that. Let's see. So we'll set this to 709 here. And then if I just delete that merge node, I'm going to use a grade option. We'll merge this over top of a constant. And the constant will be set to the same value as what our scene is, which is 2K lat long, I guess. And then now, after this Z defocus here, we would place in a shuffle node. And if I shuffled in from this merge node here, take the A input, and then we're going to create a new layer called distortion. And then we'll take this distortion as alpha. Now, from the A, we can take the alpha, which is, if we go look at that, is pretty much everything. Or we could take the red value. So we'll just do RGB and then take the red value and plug that directly into the alpha. So now if I go look at this guy, we have a new layer called distortion alpha. If I select that, we go view it, we can see this distortion layer happening. Now, after our shuffle node, we can add in an iDistort. And the iDistort can use the UV channel of distortion, and we can distort that specific area. So now this guy over here, we got this grade node. I'll probably even take this and just add in some contrast and then blur based off of that, which I think I actually prefer to add just a blur node in, and then using the mask of your distortion, you can actually blur based off of that. And so now if we change the amount of our scaling here, there's your distortion. Anyways, I think this is it for today, guys. This is the photo that we created here, the Mad Max photo. I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for joining the live stream, and I will see you guys next time. Keep creating and do great things. All right, you guys have a good one.